click the links for Odysee and Bit Chute. That's where I put the stuff that's not politically correct for YouTube. The censorship on YouTube is getting off the hook. Okay, so when I first read this Bounding into Comics article, this guy comes across as kind of a free speech guy, but then I read the original article in Hollywood Reporter, and not so much. It's more like the guy's interviewing him is Abrams. This Abramovic guy is interviewing this original Saturday Night Live guy from like 1975, and the Abramovic guy is kind of butthurt over the BLT jokes that Dave Chappelle was doing. He didn't think that they were, I don't know if he didn't think that they were funny, or if he just it just, for whatever reason, it triggered him. And this guy doesn't give a rat's ass about BLTs in his 80s, and as well he shouldn't. You shouldn't either. You should be, make fun of everybody. If it's funny, then just let it flow. But the thing is, I got the feeling that if a BLT comedian, if they exist, made fun of with the black person as the punchline, from the article I got the feeling that the laughter would stop pretty quickly, because that is what he considers off limits. So really, it kind of felt like an interview between two guys that both kind of came across a little bit as assholes. Neither one of them really gets the concept that either it's all okay or none of it is. If one guy wants to have BLT stuff off limits and the other guy wants to have black stuff off limits, well, then you can see where that goes. Like, everyone wants to have their group off limits. So really, you're saying you don't want to have any comedy whatsoever, which is kind of where we're headed. So this guy's an old Saturday Night Live guy, and I went and I watched a few of his old clips. Keep in mind, Saturday Night Live really sort of ran from, it's still on the air in case you're unaware, it really kind of ran from 1975 to 1995, maybe 2000 at the latest. Anything in the past 10 to 20 years, it's like that scene in A Clockwork Orange where you're forced to watch cringe, just non-stop BuzzFeed, Hannah Gadsby level humor. If you don't know who she is, you can probably find some of her, in quotes, stand-up on YouTube. She's an obese Australian woman who talks about how she was struggle-snuggled. It's like, I thought this was stand-up. That sounds horrific. Yeah, that's SJW humor. So the Twitter idiots today are upset that Saturday Night Live made fun of Biden's dementia, and they treated it with kid gloves. They felt it was in poor taste. And they're also triggered of the race car driver Brandon. They said they were cheering. They said, "Let's go, Brandon," and the reporter. Well, they were saying, fuck Joe Biden, but the reporter interpreted it as, let's go, Brandon. They think that is like a war crime. You go, you guys just had 4 years of saying the most horrific things about Trump. Do you not listen to yourselves? Do you really not hear the hypocrisy? They're incapable of any self-reflection whatsoever. If they could self-reflect, they probably wouldn't be on the far left. They felt it was in poor taste to make fun of a dementia patient who's currently leading the country. The joke is on us, and it's not funny. It's actually kind of scary. So if you go back to Saturday Night Live, the first 10 years, keep in mind, go back to those heady days of 1975, you didn't have the distractions for your attention that we do now. Before about 2000, the world was very much a different place in terms of computing power. Yeah, there were chat rooms in 2000 and in the late 90s and in the late 80s, but they just weren't quite the same. Though in the late 90s, they were pretty good. It's like just scrolling live chats, different rooms for different topics. That was it is what it is. It's like what you're used to. But then social media came up in about 2005, and I think really, really blew up probably in the last 10 years. So you didn't have the distractions until like 2000 and even a little bit later. The thing is, we had much longer attention spans back then. For example, I was watching the original Saturday Night Live on a Sailing the High Seas site, and compared to modern content, it actually makes modern Americans kind of look like idiots, which if you look at the the data is accurate. So if you watch a few hours of 1980s Saturday Night Live versus 2020 Saturday Night Live, you'll understand what political correctness did to comedy and to dialogue and discourse in general. In fact, I was wondering what the deadpool on it is. Will it make it to 2025, which I guess would be the 50-year anniversary? Here's the thing. It shouldn't survive. It should have been canceled 20 years ago, but I think it will survive because no matter how low the views are, it's propaganda value to the left. And if they cancel it, it looks like what it is. Political correctness killing some form of free expression. It's like people think comedy and they don't think, well, yeah, it falls within the umbrella of free expression. And I don't mean from a legal standpoint, from the concept of people exchanging ideas and beliefs and viewpoints. It's a form of expression, and it's an important one, which is exactly why it sucks balls now. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can find some clips online of modern Saturday Night Live, and it's just, I don't think you could sit through a whole episode. The whole the only safe punchlines nowadays are like Trump, Christian, and they still make fun of Trump. It's like, it's October. It's October of a year into the new guy's term. You can move on. Trump's not coming back. Even the Republicans don't want him back. So if you're left making fun of Trump and Christians, those Catholics and those just like, oh gosh, the Catholics. Yeah, you never really touch on the Muslims and Jews. It's really kind of strange. You can always make fun of whites or Republicans, which is rough because Republicans aren't in power. Biden, the dementia patient, is in office. And that's a target-rich environment, comedically speaking. There's a lot to make fun of with Biden and the people who are surrounding Biden. But they can't. They just can't make fun of him. All the writers for Saturday Night Live are all far, far left-wing nut jobs. And the comedians on the show, because the people who are doing the stuff aren't necessarily the writers of it, they're not going to make fun of Biden. It would be hysterical if they found their balls and did it, because they would be eviscerated on Twitter. And the thing is, whoever is pulling, I don't know who owns NBC. It might be Disney for all I know. So it's like, you're not going to have, you would have a call from whoever is in charge of that division. It would be like a phone call to phone call to phone call to be like, what are you guys doing? This is not, we're not Republicans. We can't do this kind of thing. And if you go through the YouTube comments for the old clips on Saturday Night Live, you got a bunch of pussies who don't have a sense of humor because it's a weapon in the propaganda war, and they cannot use humor because so many topics are haram now. All they're left with is a kvetching yenta singing about white male rage. Anything that on the nose is rarely funny. See what I did there? It's just them saying who they hate. It's like, yeah, we get it. You really hate white people. We're 100% on board with that. It's just too in your face to be funny. With pre-1990s humor, they kind of just threw grenades all over the place. I will say that Andy Kaufman was never funny. His career was like 15 years of annoying cringe. He actually died really young. I think he died at like 35 of cancer. Sucks. But, people found him entertaining at the time. So it's like the thought of saying, oh, well, you shouldn't listen to him because I don't like what he had to say. That's insane. And it's insane that we entertain people, these group of Netflix idiots who go and protest outside of Netflix, who say they want to deplatform people. Or somewhere in the article they're talking about, this is GLAAD, and they're run by flat out mentally ill people. Dave Chappelle's brand has become synonymous with ridiculing trans people and other marginalized community. Who's marginalized? Everyone is marginalized at one time in their life. Negative reviews and viewers loudly condemning his latest special is a message to the industry that audiences don't support platforming. Are you saying you want to censor Dave Chappelle? Anti-gay diatribe. We agree. And they put a period and then a short sentence after that to make it sound more impactful. It's kind of cheesy. So then you look at the audience scores, and you're like, oh, 96% audience score. Now, I myself am not a huge fan of Dave Chappelle. I thought he was funny like 25 years ago. He just seems to have fallen into, like, I don't know, this bitter like he's got a lot of issues. I can't focus, and I've heard him flat out lie to make a joke connect. And it's like you can lie to make jokes connect in the audience in the 90s when the audience is a little bit, I don't know, more naive, I guess. But nowadays it's impossible because everyone's on the internet. It's like we all know what's going on. And he did it with a couple of jokes, and it's like he did it in the 90s, and it didn't work in the 90s, and he's done it recently, and it doesn't work now because like everyone's got their phone on them. They know what the score is anyway. So people like his stuff. I mean, generally they like his stuff, and his live shows are doing really well. But the professional critics didn't like his stuff. Well, they have their thumbs just all up their ass. And the thing is, if you're a professional critic and you get your name attached to your review and you go, oh yeah, I thought it was really funny. It's like, oh, you're transphobic, are you? No, I don't really. I mean, I think you should be able to, like, the people lampooned in the joke. I remember the Space Jews joke and the LGBT stuff. And then I think he even touched on the recent black on Asian violence. Those are the clips I heard, and I'm sure he punched on everyone else too. But it's like, do you think one group is off limits? Then what about every other group? It's not objective; it's subjective. If you're the Christian who's being made fun of, then your feelings, you're an individual who's being hurt by this comedy. You're not some group. It's like you're not. It's like they seem to think like one group is marginalized and one group isn't. It's like, well, it wouldn't be fair to say that everyone is poor or is below a certain income is marginalized and oppressed just by the sheer fact of not having resources. Oh no! You have to compare the skin tone. Well, that's insane. Because the real privilege in any nation is going to be money. It's to say you have two equal groups and one is privileged and one is more marginalized and oppressed than another because they're a member of like a different group that doesn't affect them in any way whatsoever. They're still like struggling to pay the same bills. It doesn't make any sense. Well, there's still, I'll leave it at that. It's hard to make these videos on YouTube, but Odysee and Bit Chute's got a little bit more free speech. Anyway, so I mean, like, how do they make such an asinine statement like this? Like, this is an objectively false statement. The same people didn't like it, and then he should be censored. 96% of the audience said they liked it, and he shouldn't be censored. And my point was that if you're a professional reviewer, you got like your name attached to a newspaper, and you said, "Oh yeah, I like it," they're gonna go, "Oh, you're transphobic now, are you? Oh, you had that transphobic review." They'll never let it go. I mean, what America is headed for now is completely unsustainable. It cannot be upheld. Where you've got this chilling effect on free speech, and it's not like, no, we're not headed to these Russian gulags because the situation is too different. It's not like that would almost be a more peaceful transition than what we're headed towards, because we're headed towards a conflict. I don't know. I'll leave it at that. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys next episode.